I didn't want to record a video on BBCAN10 today because frankly I'm already tired of this cast. But I couldn't not record a video dedicated to the piece of shit that is Kyle Moore 2.0. I've given Marty a lot of crap because he is the one that laid this foundation on his HOH where he seemed to try to put together trusting relationships between the white players in the game. Even though that wasn't necessarily best for his game, and now he's just created more enemies along the way that he really didn't need to do this week, but he did. So I already covered that yesterday. But despite the shit I've talked about Marty, I mean, he did have a terrible HOH in my opinion, but with his groundwork that he set among the white players, Marty does have good relationship with some black players in this game. He has a pretty good relationship with Summer and Tanisha, and he also has a very secret Final 2 deal with Herman that nobody knows about. And Marty has done this thing in talks with Kevin and others where he alludes to the fact that he has deals with Kyle and Gino, but he never has thrown that Final 2 with Herman under the bus or let it be known to anyone. So I think Herman did a really good job of getting Marty on his HOH in week 1 and making that deal with Marty, because that, so far, the man Marty that claims that he will never go back on his word and went back on his word a lot this past week, he hasn't gone back on that Final 2. But let's get to Kyle Moore. It should be no surprise that the man that Twitter liked last season and that they were wishing this guy was the real Kyle in season 9 instead of Kyle Moore number 1, it should be no surprise that Kyle Moore number 2 is problematic. And I don't want to use this to act like Kyle Moore number 1 ended up being this great casting choice, because he wasn't either. Choosing between the two Kyle Moores, Kyle Moore number 1 and Kyle Moore number 2, is basically like choosing between cat shit and dog shit. Cat shit and dog shit, choose one. You don't want neither. But Kyle Moore number 2 is a problem because, yes, Marty laid the groundwork this past week, but Kyle Moore is the one that has taken the bait. That on week 2, he has decided that somehow all the black players are untrustworthy. And this isn't the first microaggressions of the season. We've had Stephanie and even JC, mostly Stephanie, but both of them calling Summer and Tanisha scary, even though Summer's done... Neither of them have done anything to be scary in this game. So the microaggressions always find a way to come out of the white players in regards to the black players. But with Kyle Moore, it's been a step too far these past 24 hours. When last night, when he's running scenarios with Marty about who he wants out of the house, somehow Kyle Moore wants all the people of color out of the house first. Because he's naming all the names that he doesn't trust. With, I guess, Helena being the last of that. But certainly all the black players are who Kyle Moore wants out, back to back to back to back to back to back. And frankly, this is worse than any of these past seasons on Big Brother, where, I mean, it's not worse than incidents like Big Brother 15 or Big Brother 21, but it's worse in the fact that in past seasons, when the people of color go home early in the game, there's only like 2 of them, maybe 3. So it's really no surprise that there's these big white alliances when there's only 3 people of color in the goddamn game. But now when the cast is half people of color, and you still want the black players out back to 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 back, and you can't develop these trusting relationships with the black players, I think that says something about you. It does. Because it's only week 2, but you're already making this assessment that somehow you can only feel comfortable with the white players. I just think that is so problematic, honestly. And it says a lot both of Kyle Moore's game if he can't make these trusting relationships with everybody in the house, and he wants to at least discount half of the house. But it also says a lot about his character, and his character is showing that he probably is worse than Kyle Moore number one, because for all of the shit Kyle Moore number one did, and frankly he didn't even do that much shit, he was kind of just furniture, but he did have moments where when him and Kiefer weren't getting along, Kyle Moore number one was acting like, in all of his whiteness, that he knew that Kiefer's indigenous people were going to be so mad and ashamed of Kiefer, even though it ended up being quite the opposite, of course. But Kyle Moore was acting high and mighty about Kiefer. But throughout all of that, Kyle Moore number one was Rohan, a person of color. Whereas Kyle Moore number two can't trust any people of color, apparently, and only wants to try and deal with the white people. So yes, no surprise that that Twitter, who hyped this man up, that he was a wolf in sheep's clothing, but he wasn't even a wolf. He's not a wolf in this game, nor is he in sheep's clothing. It's more like a hood. But he was definitely the worst casting decision of this season. He's bringing what could be a very dark turn in this season if he continues down the path that he is currently going on, that Marty kind of set forward. Because he was looking real bad last night with some of the stuff he was saying with microaggressions and the targets on all the black players, every single one of them. He doesn't trust, and he can't trust, and they need to go first. Now, I'm definitely sick of cancel culture, so I don't want to go too far with this rant. But I will also say that the fact that this dude, at his young age, has this mental health podcast is kind of a joke. But I mean, the podcast isn't popular anyway, so it is what it is. I don't think his podcast should get canceled. But he's a fake, he's a fraud, he's a phony, and he's problematic. Now, there's plenty more on the cast that I want to talk shit about. I'll save that for a future video, maybe tomorrow if I have time, because frankly, almost this entire cast gets on my nerves and I don't like them. But I will say, we'll talk about Gino last here on this video, because Gino could be set up in the best position of this house, because I feel like Gino does a very good job of, similar to Kevin in this sense, where he lets people give him information, but he doesn't give a whole lot of information to anybody else. But Gino is also in good with people in power or people that have a lot of alliances themselves. So I feel like Gino has to be set up the best right now, other than the fact that he kind of finally gave in to production. He gave in to production wanting a showmance in this game, and he's been cuddling with JC these past 2 days now. So that could put a target on both of their backs in the future. Though if production has their way, it won't be these next few weeks. They should be safe for the next few weeks because production wants the showmance, even though it made the episode terrible. I don't know why producers of Big Brother want Big Brother to just be The Bachelor, but it ain't The Bachelor, and nobody watches Big Brother to watch The Bachelor. Especially Big Brother Canada. Nobody watches this show, period, anyway. So, it's funny that on Twitter, there's like 2,000 people on Twitter that talk about Big Brother Canada, and that's about it. This isn't a sensation like Big Brother US. So I don't understand production's deal to have show matches so badly on Big Brother Canada, or how last season and so far this season, their episodes are edited completely terrible, worse than BBUS. But here we are, and the season isn't good so far. But we'll see what comes about after Marty's HOH. But at this point, somebody not white needs to win the next HOH, or we are going to be in for an uncomfortable season, in my opinion. Because I've seen people say, well, this is what happens when you have the cookout, a big black alliance, even though that happened one time in 23 seasons of BBUS, where combined between BBUS and BB Canada, we've had at least minimum 28 seasons where there's white alliances dominating. So this happened before the cookout anyway. So, like I said, both on the Survivor podcast last season, and I said on one of these videos a few days ago for BBCAN10, that until the white players can actually feel comfortable and not feel racist and not feel like all the black players are untrustworthy and dangerous and scary, then we're not going to have alliances that work and that can be diverse with both black and white and other POC players. So, blame the white players because the cookout was always a response to that bullshit. But I'll get more into this tomorrow if I can record on why this Robin cast sucks.